Hello, thank you for joining Argus Community Catch program on today's. Hello, thank you for joining us today at Argus Community's Catch program, Tobacco Use and Women's Health webinar. We're going to be getting into the issues in regards to tobacco and women's health, the history, and the effects on women's health when they are consuming tobacco. Next slide. The overview and purpose. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the history of tobacco and women, statistics on women in tobacco, and the effects of tobacco on female anatomy. Tobacco companies began marketing cigarettes to appeal to women during the burgeoning women's movement of the 1920s. Torches of freedom was a phrase used to encourage women smoking by exploiting women's aspirations for a better life during the early 20th century first wave feminism in the United States. Next slide. The history of propaganda. Tobacco industry's targeted marketing of women can be tracked back to the 1920s. While women were first depicted in cigarette ads as non-smoking admirers of smoking men, by 1927, advertisements with women smoking began to appear in women's magazines. One of the earliest and most famous cigarette advertising companies directed at women was Lucky Strike's Reach for a Lucky instead of a Sweet. Despite the advance of targeted advertising, smoking among women did not really gain social acceptability until World War II. During that era, cigarette companies began to target women more directly, using the fashion, beauty, and sophistication themes that still continues today. The companies also used images of women in the military and the workplace. For example, Carmel ads slogans during World War II was first in the service and highlighted successful women in the military. While these new advertising campaigns focus on women's growing role in the American workplace, they still portrayed smoking as a stylish and feminine act. This theme of smoking as a way of achieving independence while at the same time remaining stylish and attractive, especially to men, became less popular after the war ended, but would later reappear. Next slide. The push for women-specific brands in the 1970s. Cigarette advertising continued to target women throughout the 1950s and 1960s, but the companies did not make a full-scale effort to expand the number of their female customers until the late 1960s, realizing the impact that the women's liberation movement was having on the role of women in America. The tobacco companies began to create specific brands of cigarettes for women. With the introduction of Virginia Slims by Philip Morris in 1968, women became a major target of the tobacco industry. Cigarette ads for this brand depicted women as independent and successful with catchy taglines such as the infamous "You've come a long way, baby." Like early ads targeted at women, these marketing efforts continued to portray female smoking as a way to express one's independence, as well as a way to particularly stylish and sexy. 6 years after the introduction of Virginia Slims, the other brands aimed at the female market, the smoking initiation rate of 12-year-olds had increased by 110%. Increases among teenage girls of other ages were also substantial. Next slide. Push for women in the 90s. In the early 1990s, Philip Morris revamped the image of Virginia Slims with its It's a Woman Thing campaign. While these ad campaigns continue to suggest empowerment and attractiveness from smoking, the ad company focused on how women are different than men. From 1999 to 2000, Virginia Slims launched the lavish Find Your Voice ad campaign, which featured strikingly beautiful women from around the world and suggests that independence and allure could be found by smoking. Philip Morris, chief executive, in June 2000, agreed to remove the Find Your Voice slogan after being questioned in the landmark Florida smokers trial about whether it might be offensive to smokers with throat cancer. With the success of these marketing campaigns, the tobacco companies fully recognize the importance of women and girls as a key to their future success. For example, an internal R.J. Reynolds document stated that younger adult female smokers will continue to gain importance among young adult smokers due to their stronger incidence trend versus young adult male smokers. In the 1990s, the tobacco industry started tying their print advertising campaigns to a variety of promotional campaigns. These campaigns reinforced the image of smoking as stylish and sexy by offering free merchandise like clothing and CDs. Studies have shown that there is a direct relationship between the awareness of and involvement with promotional items and smoking initiation by youth. Next slide. Big tobacco markets towards the female population. Cigarette smoking was initially adopted by men in industrialized countries and was later taken up by women in those countries. Women, who are now adopting more dominant roles in society, they have increased spending power. They live longer than men. They seem to be less influenced by the anti-smoking campaigns than their male counterparts. All in all, this makes women a prime target. By focusing their research on how females view themselves, their aspirations, and the social pressures they face, the cigarette companies have developed some of the most aggressive and sophisticated marketing campaigns in history for reaching and influencing women and girls. The consequences of these campaigns are staggering. Smoking among girls and women increased dramatically in the 1990s. Rates have since declined, but today 4.1% of high school girls and 12.0% of adult women still smoke. Next slide. Women in the US population. Individuals who identify as female in the United States make up 50.8% of the population. They earn more than 50% of their undergraduate's degree and 59% of all master's degree. They earn 48.5% of all law degrees and 47.5% of all medical degrees. They earn 38% of Master of Business Administration and other generalist degrees and 49% of specialized master's degree. They also account for 47% of the U.S. labor force and 52.5% of the college-educated workforce. 57.4% of the women participated in the labor force compared to 69.2% of men. Next slide. Tobacco use and women. Tobacco use negatively affects every organ system and is the most prevalent cause of premature death for adults within the United States. Compared with women who are non-smokers, women who smoke cigarettes have greater risk of reproductive health problems, many forms of gynecological cancer and other types of cancers, coronary and vascular disease, chronic obstructive lung disease, and osteoporosis. Tobacco use has deleterious effects on women through throughout all stages of life. Next slide. Facts about smoking. The smoking rate for women in some racial ethnic groups is higher than others. For example, in 2016, smoking rate for American Indian, Alaskan Native women was 24.8%, while the rate for non-Hispanic white women was 15.5%. For Hispanic women, just 7.0%, and 5.6% for Asian American women. The smoking rate is also much higher for lesbian and bisexual women than for heterosexual women. In 2016, the smoking rate for women who identify as bisexual or lesbian was 17.9, compared to 13.5% for women who identify as straight. This difference is likely the result of multiple factors, including social stigma, sexual orientation, and gender identity discrimination targeted marketing. Smoking is directly responsible for 80% of lung cancer deaths in women in the United States each year. In 2014, an estimated 70,700 women died of lung or bronchial cancer. In 1987, lung cancer surpassed breast cancer as the leading cause of cancer deaths among women in the United States. From 1959 to 2010, the risk of developing lung cancer increased tenfold for women. There's a lot of history in regards to smoking in women. As stated earlier in earlier slides, women really began smoking in the early 19th century due to the depression and things of that nature. I wanted to bring that up because in 1991, my grandma passed away from lung cancer, and she was a heavy smoker. She was born in 1920, so she lived throughout the depression and things going on in the world at that time, and as a result, she started smoking to pass time or to supplement for something that was going on in her life, and she was a smoker for a very long time, and she unfortunately passed away from lung cancer in 1991. Next slide. Key facts about smoking part 2. Female smokers are nearly 22 times more likely to die from chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, which includes emphysema and chronic bronchitis, compared to women who have never smoked. Women who smoke may develop more severe COPD early in life. Women who smoke also have an increased risk for developing cancer of the oral cavity, larynx, the voice box, esophagus, pancreas, kidney, bladder, and uterine cervix. They also double their risk for developing coronary heart disease. Post-menopausal women who smoke have lower bone density than women who've never smoked. Women who smoke have an increased risk for hip fracture compared to people who never smoke, women who never smoke. Cigarette smoking also causes skin wrinkling that could make smokers appear prematurely older. Women have been extensively targeted by tobacco marketing. These arts are dominated by themes associating cigarettes with social desirability, independence, weight control, and having fun. Like most other advertisements, they often feature slim, attractive, and athletic models. Some teenage girls start smoking to avoid weight gain, and others to identify themselves as independent and glamorous. Both themes promoted by tobacco industries. Next slide. Women's smoking rates. There's 13.5% of African American women who smoke. Native American Alaskan Native women is 24%. Asian American women 2.6%. Hispanic Latinx women 7.1%. White women It's at 16%. Next slide. Epidemiology. Despite the evidence of the negative effects of tobacco use, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports 18% of women older than 18 years old smoked cigarettes in 2019. This rate of smoking has remained essentially unchanged over those 5 years, thus falling short of the Healthy People 2010 goal of the smoking rate of 12% or less. More than 80% of current smokers began their addiction to tobacco before age 18 years. Tobacco use by women is most prevalent among women who have attained lower levels of education, are poor, and are white or of mixed race. From 2000 to 2004, the United States spent $193 billion on annual tobacco use health-related economic losses, with one half dedicated to direct medical costs and the other half to lost productivity. The money spent by U.S. private and public entities on the adverse effects of tobacco use is twice the amount of tobacco sales. Next slide. Health effects. Because of the negative effects of tobacco use on fertility and fetal development, there is a focus on smoking cessation in consideration of women's reproductive health. However, the sequelae of tobacco use have negative health effects on a woman through all stages of her life. Approximately 90% of cases of lung cancer are caused by smoking or exposure to tobacco smoke. Lung cancer has surpassed breast cancer as the leading cause of cancer death in women. Colon cancer is the third leading cause of cancer deaths in women, and there is a dose-related increased risk of colon cancer in smokers. Women who smoke are also at an increased risk of gynecological cancer. Cigarette smoking has been identified as a risk factor in the development of mucinous epithelial ovarian cancer. There is a linear relationship between premenopausal tobacco use and breast cancer, particularly if smoking is initiated before the birth of the first child. Smoking also contributes to the progression of cervical interfilial neoplasia, and both active and passive smoking have been linked to squamous cell sarcoma of the cervix in women seropositive for HPV-16 or HPV-18. We talk more about HPV in our other webinars and groups. If you'd like to join us, there'll be information on that on our post on the YouTube at the end of this video. Smoking also has been linked to cancer of the bladder, kidney, and pancreas. Next slide. Circulation. When you smoke, the poisons from the tar in your cigarettes enters your blood. These poisons in your blood then make your blood thicker and increase chances of clot formation, increase your blood pressure and heart rate, making your heart work harder than normal. They narrow your arteries, reducing the amount of oxygen-rich blood circulating to your organs. Together, these changes to your body when you smoke increase the chance of your arteries narrowing and the clots forming, which can cause a heart attack or stroke. Next slide. The heart. Smoking damages your heart and your blood circulation, increasing the risk of conditions such as coronary heart disease, heart attack, stroke, peripheral vascular disease, damaged blood vessels, and cerebral vascular disease, damaged arteries that supply blood to your brain. Carbon monoxide from the smoke and nicotine both put a strain on the heart by making it work faster. They also increase your risk of blood clots. Other chemicals in cigarette smoke damage the lining of your coronary arteries, leading to furring of the arteries. Next slide. Smokers are at greater risk for disease that affect the heart and blood vessels, cardiovascular disease. Smoking causes stroke and coronary heart disease, which are among the leading causes of death in the United States. Even people who smoke fewer than 5 cigarettes a day can have early signs of cardiovascular disease. Smoking damages vessels, blood vessels, and can make them thicken, and grow narrow. This makes your heart beat faster and your blood pressure go up. Clots can also form. A stroke occurs when a clot blocks the blood flow to part of your brain. A blood vessel in or around your brain bursts. Blockage caused by smoking can reduce blood flow to your legs and skin. Next slide. The brain. Nicotine also stimulates the pleasure centers of the brain, mimicking dopamine. So your brain starts to associate nicotine use with feeling good. According to the National Institute of Health, the nicotine in cigarette changes your brain, which leads to withdrawal symptoms when you try to quit. When this happens, you may experience a variety of side effects, including anxiety, irritability, and a strong craving for nicotine. Next slide. Lungs. Smoking can cause lung disease by damaging the airways and the small air sacs, alveoli, found in your lungs. Lung disease caused by smoking includes COPD, which include emphysema and chronic bronchitis. Cigarette smoking causes most cases of lung cancer. If you have asthma, tobacco smoke can trigger an attack or make an attack worse. Smokers are 12 to 13 times more likely to die from COPD than non-smokers. Next slide. The stomach. Smokers have an increased chance of getting stomach cancer or ulcers. Smoking can weaken the muscles that controls the lower end of your gullet, esophagus, and allow acid from the stomach to travel in the wrong direction back up your gullet, a process known as reflux. Smoking is a significant risk factor for developing kidney cancer, and the more you smoke, the greater the risk. For example, research has shown that if you regularly smoke 10 cigarettes a day, you are 1.5 times more likely to develop kidney cancer compared with a non-smoker. This is an increase to twice as likely if you smoke 20 or more cigarettes a day. Next slide. The mouth and throat. Smoking causes unattractive problems such as bad breath and stained teeth. It can also cause gum disease, damage your sense of taste, and can lead to oral thrush. The most serious damage smoking causes in your mouth and throat is an increased risk of cancer in your lips, tongue, throat, and voice box, and the gullet. More than 93% of oral pharyngeal cancers in part of the throat, are caused by smoking. Next slide. Skin and bones. Smoking reduces the amount of oxygen that gets to your skin. This means that if you smoke, the skin ages more quickly and looks gray and dull. The toxins in your body also cause cellulite. Smoking prematurely ages your skin by between 10 and 20 years. It makes it 3 times more likely you'll get facial wrinkling, particularly around the eyes and mouth. Smoking even gives you a shallow, yellow, grayish complexion and hollow cheeks, which can cause you to look gaunt. Smoking can cause your bones to become weak and brittle. Women need to especially be careful as they are more likely to suffer from brittle bones, osteoporosis, than non-smokers. want to thank you for tuning in to this part of the session. We will resume for the second part, and we will post up on our YouTube board. I'm Yamina Castillo. I'm a health educator. Thank you for joining us today. See you in our second part of tobacco use and women's health. Thank you.